you are well, and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 3 English lesson on adjectives. And before we start with our lesson on adjectives, you're going to log into aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged into aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts. So when it comes to adjectives, right? So we said our chapter is adjectives. So we're going to scroll down up until we get to that specific chapter. So our chapter is adjectives. Our subject is English language arts, grade 3. And the lessons that we are focusing on under the chapter of adjectives is, does the adjective tell us what kind or how many? We're going to identify the adjectives that describes the nouns, as well as identify adjectives. So adjectives, that is our chapter for today. And we are doing our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. So basically an adjective, right, it is a word that tells you more about a noun. So an adjective, it's a word that tells you more about the noun, right? We can even say it describes a noun, or we can even say it modifies a noun. So we said an adjective is a word that tells you more about the noun, either describes a noun, or we can even say it modifies the noun. And some of our adjectives, right, they answer the questions such as what kind, and it answers the question how many. So once we answer the question what kind, right, so it's, for example, the small baby smiled. The small baby smiled. So what kind of baby smiled? It was the small baby that smiled. We can just say the baby smiled, but we're specifically saying it's a small baby that smiled. And she carried heavy books. So instead of just saying she carried books, we can say she carried heavy books. So what kind of books? She carried heavy books. And some of our questions or some of our adjectives, they answer the question, how many? So they answer the question, how many? For example, one baby smiled. So, how many babies smiled? Only one baby smiled. She carried some books. So she carried some books. So how many books did you carry? Only carried some books. Right? And that is basically an adjective that it's a word that tells us more about the noun or describes the noun. And we said we have adjectives that answer the question what kind or how many. And an adjective, right? We say that it's a word that tells us more about the noun. And we basically have the same. All right. So now we're going to aplusstudents.ca. And we're going to the first lesson where it says, does the adjective tell you what kind or does it tell you how many? And we said an adjective is a word that tells us more about the noun. And the adjectives that tells us what kind is, for example, the small baby smiled. The small baby smiled. So it's like asking yourself, what kind of baby smiled? And we can say it is the small baby, the chubby baby, the cute baby. So the small baby smiled. And then she carried heavy books. What kind of books did she carry? Heavy books. And then also some adjectives, they answer the question, how many? Right? For example, one baby smiled. Now later on you can ask, how many babies smiled? Only one baby smiled. She carried some books. So she carried some books. So how many books did she carry? And we can say she only carried some books. And as you can see, when you ask questions like what kind, or you ask how many, you don't have to ask how many as it has to be more than 1,000 or 100. Words like some, many, a lot. All right. And some is correct. Yes. All right. So now we're going to look at the adjective, right? We need to say, does it tell us what kind of adjective it is or how many adjectives there are? So the angry bull charged. So the angry bull charged. So we can say the angry bull charged. So it's like asking you the question, what kind of bull? So it's like asking yourself, what kind of bull, right? And then we say it's the angry bull that charged. Can you hear me now? So the angry bull charged. So we said the angry bull. So what kind of bull? It is an angry bull, right? So like we said, what kind of bull? It's like you're answering that question and we can say it's the angry bull. All right. So once again, we can say what kind of adjective or how many, right? When it comes to certain things. All right. So once again, an adjective is a word that tells you more about the noun, that describes the noun. All right. So now we're going to our test. So we're going to look at the adjective in bold. We look at the word that is in bold. And then we're going to say if it is telling us what kind or if it's telling us how many. So we can say, look at the adjective in bold, which is five. It says, follow these five rules. Five. Do we say five means or tells us what kind, or five tells us how many? All right. So five rules, it means that it tells us how many. So it's like asking yourself, like, how many rules are there? And you basically say there are five rules because it tells you how many. So how many rules must we follow? Only five. The next one is one sock is missing. One sock is missing. Does this tell us what kind or does it tell us how many? One sock is missing. And we're basically going to say it means how many, right? Because it's basically the word one tells us how many socks are missing. So how many is correct? So well done. How many is correct? Well done, guys. Colton spent $15. So Colton spent $15. So we said that Colton spent $15. We must still say if it is telling us what kind or if it's telling us how many. Right? So how many do you want? I want 15. $15. And $15 tells us how many. So well done. How many is correct? All right. We're going into the next lesson, which is to identify the adjectives that describes the nouns. Oopsie, what's happening? All right, so we said that with our adjectives, right, it describes a noun and it tells us what kind and it also tells us how many, right? So if we identify the adjectives that describe the noun, it says here, all right. And we say that an adjective describes the noun or tells us more about the noun. And they answer questions like what kind, and they answer questions like how many. All right, let's go to our test. All right. So if we look at the sentence, right, we're still going to say if it is what kind or if you're going to say it's how many, right? It says, we saw a sparkly star in the sky. And we need to select the adjective that either tells us what kind. It says, we saw a sparkly star in the sky. We saw a sparkly star in the sky. And then we saw a sparkly star in the sky. And we also see that adjectives, right, they tell you about the noun or describes the noun or modifies the noun. And we saw a sparkly star in the sky. So that is basically us saying, what kind of star did you see? I saw a sparkly star in the sky. And if we go to the next one, it says, give Shelby 2 blankets. Does this tell us how many, or does it tell us what kind? So does it tell us what kind, or does it tell us how many? So Shelby says, give me Shelby 2 blankets. Give Shelby 2 blankets. All right. So let us go to our test. So with our test, we are going to basically also say if it is. We're basically going to select the adjective, right? But keeping in mind how many and what kind, right? But now we're basically going to have to identify who um we're going to say select the adjective that tells you what kind. Look at the beautiful butterfly. So look at the beautiful butterfly. Is our adjective a, or is it beautiful? Yes, so beautiful. And if we choose a second one, some people are saying the second one, some people are just saying beautiful, and that is correct because it describes the butterfly and it tells us what kind of butterfly it is because it is a beautiful butterfly. Yes, so beautiful is correct. So well done. So we need to select the adjective that tells you what kind. So if we select the adjective, right, that is Michael has a red belt. So mom has a red belt. And then we have another one that says Michelle or Mitchell has a red belt. What kind? I think we did this one already. And then we say it is red. Yes, and red is correct. Yes, red is correct. Well done. And now we need to select the adjective that tells you what kind. Emma sang a pretty song. So Emma sang a pretty song. We need to select the adjective. Is it sang? So we need to select the adjective that tells you what kind. And we say Emma sang a pretty song. All right. So now we say Emma sang a pretty song. So basically, is it what kind or is it how many songs? All right, so we're going to identify the adjectives that describes the nouns, right? So we're going to select an adjective that tells you what kind. So it's like asking, select the adjective that tells you what kind. So we need to select the adjective that tells you what kind. Emma sang a pretty song. So we need to say what kind of song did Emma sing? Emma sang a pretty song. So now we need to say the adjectives that tells us basically what kind. So we say Emma sang a pretty song. All right. And if we select the adjective, we're going to say it is pretty. So we need to select the adjective that tells us what kind. And we said pretty already. Oh, I did not press. Okay, sorry. Yes, well done. So you can even use it within a sentence. I see a rattlesnake. So another one where the adjective tells us what kind. That was a wonderful play. So we need to select what is what kind. That tells us what kind. So now we need to select and say if it was what kind, or does it tell us how many? So that was a wonderful day. What kind of day was it? It was a lovely day. So we're going to go with wonderful. So we select the adjective that tells you what kind. And if we look at the sentence that says, that was a wonderful day. Play. So that was a wonderful play. And then we are going to choose the correct one. Wonderful. And then we're going to okay. So well done. Now we need to select the adjective that tells you what kind. Colton did a silly dance. All right. So now Dalton did a silly dance. What kind of dance did Dalton do? So Colton did a silly dance. What kind of dance did Colton do? So we're going to say it is a silly dance. And silly is correct. So well done, guys. Silly is correct. So we said what kind of dance? He has a silly dance. And yes, you select the three adjectives that tells you how many. The woman completed three puzzles. So the woman completed three puzzles. How many puzzles did the woman complete? So three. And three tells you what kind, how many. and 3 tells us how many. So he is short. He is a short boy. So now we must ask ourselves, what kind of boy is he? And then he is a short boy. We already went over that one. And we specifically said short is so we need to select the adjective that tells you what kind. He is so short that he can't score on the baseball. Wow, that's like roasting. So short is correct. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on adjectives. We said an adjective is a word that describes a noun. So we see that an adjective, right? So adjectives are, it describes a noun, what modifies a noun, it tells us about a noun, right? And with adjectives, it either tells you what if, or it tells you what kind, sorry, or it tells you how many. All right. So this is now the end of our lesson on adjectives. Thank you very much, grade threes, for joining the class. And I really hope you're going to have a good day further. Goodbye. All right. So that is the end of our lesson, grade three. You should have a good evening. Goodbye.